Namaskar, Dadaji.
Namaskar.
We're here with Dada Yogananda. Dada, tell us how you first got involved with Ananda Marga. What motivated you to get initiated?
Okay. It was, I guess, a couple of years before I was initiated. I had a couple of, you can say, mystical experiences, one of them being like an outer body experience. And then I started to really feel dissatisfied with my life at that time. Around that time, I moved to Malta, and this is where I met Ananda Marga. I first met Didyananda Ruchira, and she introduced me to my acharya. And I remember telling people I was, searching for something more meaningful, and somebody once said that, you're looking for perfection. And I guess in the way I found it, I didn't realize at that time that it existed. So when I met my acharya, I got initiation straight away, and I moved into the Jagati, and I was living with him for a few months before going to India.
Right. And what happened after that? What was the next significant
stage? Yeah. So we went to India, and I was staying in Ananda Marga. And that's when I got the realization that I wanted to become an acharya. I remember seeing one elderly Magi. I was sitting outside central office waiting for my acharya, and I was observing one elderly Magi just sitting there alone. In the meantime, all these acharyas were going up and down, acharyas of all ages. And I was just thinking about what would be my life in the future. And I had, been living with several acharyas in India before that, and I started to really become attracted to this lifestyle. And so that's when I took that decision that this is what I wanted to do. So after going back to Turkey and Greece, I couldn't take LFT training because in that time in Cairo sector, there was no LFT trainer. So I came back to India, and I lived in Ananda Marga for several months with our PP Dada, Acharya Vishwadevanandaji, who was at that time working with Gurukul, and he's staying in one of the college hostels. So I was living with him. I used to go with Dada Chidgayananda to these tantra pits and on the riverside doing meditation and talking with him every day. So I became very inspired. I was enjoying, those experiences with these senior acharyas. And then one day I decided, okay, the time has come. I want to go. And I decided I didn't want to go back to Europe. I wanted to stay in Asia. So I requested if I could do my training in Davao. And then I went to Davao a few months later. And we were doing some fundraising for the training center, and there were some problems. So it turns out that I had to actually go to India and do most of my training there. And I did actually all my training in Varanasi, all my exams in Benares.
What was that like?
It was a very interesting. That's when my life really took a turn, my spiritual life, because until that point, when you were new Magi in those days, everybody was asking you if you had seen Baba. This is, 92. And so, when again and again you're getting asked, have you seen Baba, have you seen Baba? Then some complex is coming in your mind because you feel that, I missed that opportunity, to have Baba's physical, satsang. And so it was only really when I went to Varanasi that I was able to overcome that complex, because what happened was soon after arriving in the training center, I met one Magi brother who was, he was from a Magi family. He came to the training center. And he basically helped me to transform, or you can say he introduced me to another level or in my meditation. It's like he introduced me to Baba in a way, because my meditation totally transformed. I mean, this brother was, and even until now, I consider him one of the greatest devotees I've ever met. I've never met anybody who loved Baba more than he does, or he did. And I started to have very intense experiences in meditation, and it is that time that really my complexes disappeared, because I no longer felt that I missed that opportunity to see Baba, because I was actually experiencing him in meditation. I had very intense experiences of feeling Baba's presence, and it was like I was so close and I was about to burst. It was just such an intense vibration. Even in kirtan, I remember in the Panchajanya, just doing dancing kirtan, and my hands straight up like this, and I couldn't move. I was just in that bhav, in that ideation that I'm with Baba. And it was a very beautiful experience. And it's actually at that time that I actually lost any other desire. I only wanted to be with Baba. I didn't want anything else in my life. And
can you say the brother's name?
Very special. Say again.
Can you
the
tell
brother's
us?
name? I prefer not to say, better just to keep his privacy.
Okay.
But basically, he left the training center soon after this interaction with him, and he told me that that was really the only reason he came to training center. He didn't know why he had come until he met with me, and we started to communicate, and we went on many walks in the gardens, and he told me so many things. So it's I had very intimate experiences which are difficult to explain, but it is at that time really. Yeah, I went from that experience or that feeling of like attraction for Baba, and then falling in love with Baba. And it was, something that blew my mind at the time. I couldn't believe that these experiences were possible. And by His grace, I continued.
Can you explain how you're feeling physically when you're having this experience?
Yeah, I mean, physically, it's basically, I mean, there are different experiences. Sometimes, you're just, tears are coming. Even singing kirtan, sometimes I can hardly sing because I'm crying so much. And so, there are, different, experiences are there, but one of them is that, feeling of kind of separation, that pain of separation, and feeling that intense, desire to be one with Him. And it's like you have a tremendous energy which is passing through you, and you feel you're going to burst with that energy. And so, it was in a way disturbing to begin with, because I wasn't used to it. And sometimes sounds would come, and my head will go back and things like that. But over time, I was able to channelize that vibration, those vibrations, and to internalize. And it's been, as I say, it transformed my life. Basically, my whole spiritual life was transformed from that moment onwards.
Right. So you did your training. What happened after that?
So after my training, as I said, that in training center, I lost any desire to really remain as an acharya or to become an acharya. I only just wanted to be one with Baba. So I was posted in New York sector, RS Seattle, and I was only in my posting for a few months, and I just felt I couldn't adjust. I was in a culture which which is really a culture shock for me after being in Asia for a couple of years. And as I say, I didn't have that desire to work at an acharya. I just wanted to do meditation. So I went to India, and I stayed with some Margi families, and I was doing a lot of meditation. So I did this for a couple of years. And then the feeling came that really I'm being selfish and I'm just doing meditation. And I went to Calcutta. I met with Dada Devatmananda. And he asked me what you were doing. I'd known him when I was a new Margi in India. My acharya and he were very good friends. And he said, why don't you come and work, in Nairobi sector, do some service. So I became very inspired at that idea. And of course, I was ex-acharya, so somehow he had to manage, getting permission from central office, and he got permission. And I went, so I was in Uganda for 2.5 years. And after that, the SS at that time, I think it was Sumitananda, either Sumitananda or Kripamananda. So they wanted me to go for retraining in Ghana, in West Africa, but central office, they preferred that I did retraining in Varanasi. So I went to Benares, I think it was towards the end of 2001. And I was, that time Dada Chidanandaji was office secretary, and he had been my trainer in Davao. So I was there for a few months. I was expecting I had to do all of the training all over again, but after a couple of months, he said, okay, you come out, you can go to central office. So then I was posted as RS Tokyo in 2002. After that, I was in Mongolia.
Before you go on to that, can you say a bit what it was like working in Africa?
Yeah, it was one of my best experiences as an acharya. As I said, we had a beautiful mass unit in the forest in Uganda, and it's still there today. We had about 20 acres, and we had a primary school with about 200-300 children. I started a clinic there, and we had a farm. We started a dairy farm. So, you're living with intense poverty, you're experiencing every single day living amongst, some of the poorest people in the world, and they could hardly afford to even eat, 2 main meals a day. So it was tremendously demanding, because you feel that obligation that you have to work very hard to do what you can to uplift their standard of living. So as I say, Baba's Grace, we could open a clinic in the village, and we were giving almost free education to the children, and it was tremendously rewarding. Whilst being very hardworking, it was the people there were so humble, and they were so positive. Even though they would surrounded by poverty and people dying of diseases, etc. But somehow they were always able to see the bright side. So it was really one of my best experiences as a worker. Yeah.
Right. And Ananda Marga there, was that very strong, or was it just starting?
No, in East Africa, there are very few Margis. Most of the Margis are either in West or South Africa. And so, we do a lot of service in East Africa, but there are very few Margis. I don't know what it is, the culture, they're very strong in Christianity or Islam, but there's tremendous opportunity to do service, but not so easy to create Margis. There were some Margis. The headmaster of the school was a very strong Margi, he still is today. I had a FaceTime call with him a couple of years ago. So he's still there, working there after many years.
So then you got posted to Taiwan, was it?
Japan. Yeah, no, from there to Japan. So it's huge culture clash again because, you know, you're going from one of the poorest to the richest countries, and a completely different culture. So I was there for 3 years, and then I was transferred to Ares, Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, and I stayed there for 4 years. So again, quite a poor country. And then I was given a sectorial posting, a MERC coordinator, and then I was made acting office secretary. And then I came to Taiwan 2009. And from 2010, I've been working here at Ananda Suruchi, our sectorial mass unit. So I'm sectorial office secretary, I'm acting sectorial rector, acting RS Taipei, and acting PRS also. So yeah, I'm very blessed to be in a very beautiful mass unit with very dedicated Magis. And, you know, we have a lot of prachar programs, you know, detox retreats, meditation, yoga retreats. And we have a very active organic farm here. So it's a very beautiful place to work and very inspiring. So I'm tremendously blessed in that regard.
There's quite a few Magis there as well, aren't they?
In Taiwan, yes, yeah. So in our retreats, our sectoral conference, we have, you know, 200 to 300, yeah, at least 200 Magis attending nowadays. So yeah, it's a very inspiring place. Taiwan is very blessed. It's quite unique in Northeast Asia because, you know, you go to Japan and Korea and Hong Kong, and that, you know, spirituality is not as, you know, prevalent as it is in Taiwan. There is a strong spiritual vibration here. You can feel it when you arrive. And of course, Baba came here in 1979. So yeah, Taiwanese Magis are very dedicated, devoted, and yes, it is a wonderful place. You know, once you adjust to the culture, it is a wonderful place to work.
Is there anything you'd like to finish off with?
I just want to say to those, you know, Magis or Acharyas who did not get the opportunity to see Baba physically, that really there is nothing to be concerned about, because Baba is here with us at this moment. And, you know, every time we sit for meditation, we have an opportunity to have his satsang. And so, you know, we don't need to have any complex in our minds. You know, those who had that were fortunate to be with Baba physically, they are very fortunate, no doubt. And they had very, you know, special samskara. But we are also very fortunate because, as I say, we have that opportunity, you know, to enjoy Baba's presence and Baba's satsang and Baba's loving embrace. And, you know, we just have to make that effort. And he's there waiting with his arms open for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaskar, Dadaji.
Namaskar.